Kristen with Hooks, Picks, and Wanderlust. Today I'm going to show you how to crochet my Faith Over Fear beanie, which is a pattern that I designed as part of Sweet Potato 3's Crochet Cancer Challenge for the year 2022. I am so happy that I get to participate in this blog hop again, and it's for such a great cause to support cancer patients out there. As a former cancer patient myself, I'm a breast cancer stage 3 survivor. I have chosen the color pink for my beanie as part of this blog hop, but pink doesn't exactly video very well, so I am going to actually be using a different color for today's video. The written pattern for this hat can be found on my blog for free, and I will put the link for that in the description box below for you, as well as any links to the other stitch tutorials for special stitches that we use in this pattern. I will go over all those stitches in this video, but if you're looking for something a little more in-depth, then that's where you're going to want to look at those other tutorials. So I will link those for you below as well. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to be making an adult small, and this hat here is actually a size medium. So I'm going to be making the small in this video just to kind of have a couple of different sizes. And I will be making it with a different color, even though I chose pink for breast cancer. I'm actually going to be using this Basic Stitch skein tones, and this is the color Hazelnut from Lion Brand. And yeah, I'm pretty excited to show you this pattern, so let's get to it. To make this pattern, you are going to need 2 different crochet hooks. We are going to use a size G or 4mm hook for our brim, and then we will use a size H or 5mm hook for the body of our hat. Now, I have used a couple of different yarns. Like I mentioned, we're going to be using skein tones in this particular video for this specific hat, but I have also used some other yarns that are comparable. I'm using a light worsted yarn, so keep that in mind. I'll put the my yarn suggestions and their wraps per inch information in the description box below for you, as well as the yardage information broken down by size so that you can reference that. I am going to go ahead and get started on the brim here. So when we're working our brim, this is pretty basic hat construction. We're going to work brim up. Our brim is going to be worked in turned rows. So the number of chain stitches that you start out with for your brim is going to determine the height of the brim on your hat. So if you want an extra wide brim or an extra tall brim, maybe you can fold over, then add chain stitches to your foundation row here. If you want it shorter, then subtract chain stitches accordingly. Okay, so I'm going to stick to the pattern which says to chain 8. We're going to have a foundation chain of 8. And again, I'm working with my 4mm hook. So chain 8 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, 8. Stop there, Kristen. Okay, so this is going to be my brim. I am going to do basic single crochet in the back loop. So to do that, my first row here is going to just be single crochet. So I'm just going to single crochet into the second chain from my hook and into each chain all the way across. Okay, got my last single crochet here. So now I should have 7 single crochets, and I do. So from here, we're going to work in the back loop for every row that comes after this. We're going to chain 1 and turn our work. And when we do that, if you look at the top of your stitches here, you should notice a little V on top of your stitch. This back loop here is what we're going to be working into. So you're going to just single crochet into just under that one loop instead of going under both. Just go under the one and single crochet all the way across. So the same thing for each of your 7 stitches. Okay. So you'll notice that a nice little ridge has formed here where that front loop remains unworked. We're going to chain 1, turn, and we're going to do the exact same thing for every row of our brim. And I will put the number of rows for the sizes broken down by size for you in the description box so you know how many rows to work. And I am going to continue working all of mine. And then I will meet you back here when I am done with all my rows. Okay, so I have finished all of the rows of my brim. I've double checked my length matches for the size that I'm making, and I am ready to go ahead and connect my 2 short sides of my skinny rectangle here to start working in the round. So to do that, I have my chain 1 here that I did at the end of this last row, and I am going to fold my short sides together, and I'm just going to slip stitch in each stitch all the way across. Nothing fancy. Matching those stitches up and slip stitching those stitches together. All right, so now that I have done that, I've got my seam here. I'm actually going to flip this so that the seam is on the inside. Okay, so now that we have the seam on the inside of our hat, I'm actually going to swap out my 4mm hook for my 5mm hook. So this is an H hook. We're going to work the rest of the hat using this hook, and we're going to start with a round of single crochet that is going to be worked evenly around our brim. We're just going to be working into the sides of our rows. So I'm going to start, I've got my chain 1 already, and I'm just going to go ahead and insert my hook into the first row, the side of the first row here, and make a single crochet. And my best tip for working evenly around a brim is to just be consistent. So my rule of thumb is like if the row is a single crochet, I'm going to work 1 stitch into the side of it. So that's why I say you're going to have a 1 for 1 with the first round. So whatever number of rows that you had for your brim, you're actually going to have the exact same number of single crochets for your first round. But when you do that, just to make sure that you're kind of being consistent with where you're placing your hook. So here I'm placing it kind of underneath a whole stitch here. Whereas in this row, I don't have that, so I'm kind of going under a couple loops just to make it more secure. And once I've gone a few stitches here, because you have a even number, you will be able to crochet over your yarn tail if you want. So I usually only do that partially, and then I go back and weave it in the other direction when I'm done. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep working my single crochets evenly around my brim. And I'll let you do the same thing, and I will meet you back here for the join. Okay, so I have finished my last single crochet of this round, and again, this is a really good point to stop and count your stitches, because you need to make sure that you have that even number of stitches before you start the next round. So if you worked 1 stitch per row as I suggested, then you should have a number of single crochets equal to the number of rows in your brim. So making the adult small size that I am, I had 86 rows of brim and I have 86 stitches in my first round. And I am going to go ahead and slip stitch to the top of the first single crochet of the round just to join the round up and close it. So I am ready to begin my first of 2 star stitch rounds. While there's 2 rounds to make the star stitch, we actually only call the first round star stitches. I don't know why. It doesn't really make sense, and I don't think I've seen any other way of identifying the 2 different rounds. So I always just think of them as the bottoms and the tops. So the first round that we do here is going to be the bottom of our star stitch, and then when we do the second round it will be the tops of our star stitch. So to start the bottom of our star stitch rounds, we're going to chain 3, and I suggest that you leave this 3rd chain just a little looser because we will be working into it at the join at the end of our round. And honestly, you might want to keep them all on the looser side because we are going to work into all of them actually. So to start, we're going to pull up a loop from the 2nd chain from our hook. If I can get my own hook in there. Okay. And we're going to leave that loop on our hook. So now we have 2 loops on our hook. Then we are going to go to the next chain from our hook, so the 3rd one from our hook, and pull up another loop, and now we'll have 3 loops on our hook. We'll leave those there and insert your hook into the very first stitch of the previous round, and that's the one at the base of your chain 3, and pull up another loop. So you'll see now we have 4 loops on our hook. We haven't really gone anywhere yet. This is all vertical aspect right now, so we need to be able to do what I call advance 2. So we're going to pull up loops from each of the next 2 stitches here in our round. So insert your hook into the next stitch and pull up a loop. So now you will have 5 loops on your hook, and then do the same for the next one. Pull up another loop, and now you'll notice you have 6 loops on your hook. So 6 is the magic number that we're looking for. You're going to go ahead, yarn over, and pull through all 6 loops. Now, to close our star stitch, we are going to chain 1, and that is going to form, this chain 1 space is going to form what we call the eye of our star stitch. That's important because we're going to be working into that as well. So for our second and the rest of our star stitches, we are going to insert our hook and pull up a loop from the eye. And then we are going to insert our hook underneath that last leg, that last loop that we pulled up of the previous star stitch. We're going to go into the loop itself, okay? And then pull up another loop. So that's 3 loops on our hook. And then again with the stitch at the base of that leg. And once again, we have not really gone anywhere yet. This is all just kind of catching us up and linking. So, So we have 4 loops on our hook, and we have successfully linked to our first star stitch, but now we need to advance 2. So we are going to pull up a loop from each of the next 2 stitches for a total of 6 loops on our hook. Again, 6 is the magic number here. So we are going to yarn over and pull through all 6 loops on our hook and chain 1 to close. All of our star stitches, with the exception of the final star stitch, are going to be done exactly the same way. So let's do it one more time here, and then we can each get our rounds finished up. So pull up a loop from the eye, and then stick your hook into the middle of that last loop, or that last leg of your star stitch, and then into the stitch at the base of that last leg. You'll have 4 loops on your hook. You have completely linked to your previous star stitch, and now we are ready to advance 2. So pull up a loop from each of the next 2 stitches. All right, 6 loops on our hook. That's our magic number. Go ahead, yarn over and pull through all 6 and chain 1 to close. So you'll notice here that our star stitches are worked over 2 stitches. So not only do we advance 2, but we are left with what looks like 2 stitches for each star stitch. So basically, if we have 86 single crochets, we should end up with 43 star stitches in round 2. So I'm going to go ahead and finish working my star stitches all the way around until I come to that final star stitch, and then I will be back to show you how to work that and how to join the round. Okay? Okay, so we are back and I have one last star stitch to work. I have 1 stitch left from my previous round. So I'm going to start the last star stitch the same way I have with all of the others, by linking to the previous star stitch. So I'll pull up a loop from the eye, from the last leg of my last star. Oh, I kind of split my yarn there. Hang on, let me fix that. I'm still splitting it. Okay, here we go. All right, so I've got I pulled up a loop from the eye, a loop from the last leg, and I'm going to pull up a loop from the stitch at the base of that last leg. Now, normally at this point we would advance 2. There's only 1 stitch left. So here's what we're actually going to end up doing. We are going to pull up a loop from that last stitch just like normal. So we should have 5 loops on our hook. But now we are actually going to insert our hook into the very first single crochet from the previous round, which is at the base of the middle leg here of our first star stitch of the round. So now we have 6 loops on our hook, and I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 6 loops. And I'm going to go ahead and show you my technique for closing the round. Typically what you would do is you would chain 1 and then slip stitch to the top of the very first single crochet. But I feel like that puts a lot of bulk right here and doesn't do a lot to, like, there's this little gap here between the star stitch and the chain 3 that I don't like. So I kind of like to try and minimize that by a little trick, and I'm going to try not to pull out my whole stitch here. Okay, so instead of doing a chain 1, what I'm actually going to do, instead of working into the top of the first star stitch, I'm actually going to work into the 3rd chain, which is right here. If you had your stitch marker in there, then you'll know exactly where to put your hook. And the reason I'm doing that is because we link to all of our previous star stitches. It makes sense that, like, it almost makes it look like this first star stitch is coming out of the second one. So I'm going to single crochet there. So I've pulled up a loop and I'm just going to yarn over and pull through 2. And what that does is it gives me a mimicked chain. I've got my eye here. Looks like a chain 1 space, but it also looks like the very first star stitch is actually coming out of that last star stitch. So it kind of hides that chain 3 just a little bit better. Although I did a really loose stitch, so I'm actually going to redo that. I'm going to tighten my stitch up a little bit here. So just single crochet into the top of that chain 3 to close. See, much better. Now it looks like it's all almost seamless, really. Okay, so that is it for the bottom half of our star stitches. So that's round 2 completed. So now for round 3, we are actually going to chain 1 and turn our work. Normally when you work in the round, you don't turn your work unless you're told to. I'm telling you to. All right, so you've chained 1, turn your work just like if you were going to work a row. And now for the top halves of our star stitches, we're going to work 2 single crochets into each eye of every star stitch all the way around. So our first eye is just right here at the bottom of our chain 1. So we will go ahead and single crochet 2 times into that eye. And then we're going to skip the top of the star stitch and then go to the next eye. So single crochet and single crochet again, both into the eye, and just keep doing that all the way around. 2 single crochets in each eye of your star stitch all the way around. And when you get to the end, you're just going to have a typical slip stitch to join. So I will meet you back there and show you what to do. All right. All right, so I just finished my last set of 2 single crochets in my last eye of the last star stitch of the previous round. That was a lot of lasts all in the same sentence. And now I'm going to finish or close my round by just doing a basic slip stitch to the very first single crochet of that round and pull it taut. All right, and now that is bubbling a bit right there, and that's normal. It does that because of that chain 3 gets bent a little bit, but that's just another way that we disguise it on the right side of our fabric. So I'm okay with that. Okay, so from here you are going to just chain 1 and we are going to turn again. So now you will be back to the right side of your fabric, ready to start your next round. Now this round is going to be just a round of half double crochet. So just a half double crochet in every single stitch all the way around, starting with the first stitch. So sometimes it's a little tricky when you're turning your work. So sometimes if you have to turn back around just to kind of keep eyes on the correct stitch, that way you don't miss anything. And then just half double in each stitch all the way around. That's it. So finish this round and I'll meet you back at the end. You can just do a slip stitch to join, just like we have on the last round. Okay, we are back. I have just finished round 4, which is just half double crochet in every stitch all the way around. And I joined my round, so I am ready to start round 5. So we are going to chain 1. And for this round, it is also going to be half double crochets, but we are going to work into the 3rd loop. If you're unfamiliar with the 3rd loop, when you look at a half double crochet, that extra yarn over you do creates this other little loop back here on the back of your work that you've got your top V stitches here, and then you've got this extra loop here. So I'm going to show you my little trick for finding that when you're working in the round, because sometimes it's not the easiest thing to get into all the time. Is I'll actually just insert my hook under the top V from the back to the front, and then I just swing that out, and then I've picked up the 3rd loop. So I'm going to show you that again. So insert your hook from the back to the front under the top V, and then just flip your hook around and you've got that 3rd loop. So I'm going to half double crochet into that 3rd loop, and I'm going to continue to do the exact same thing for every stitch all the way around. And what that's going to do is going to push the top 2 loops of our half double crochets out to the front of our work. It's going to create a really pretty ridge and a beautiful texture for our hat. So I'm just going to continue to do that all the way around. And again, once you get to the end of this round, you will join with a slip stitch to the top of the very first half double of the round. All right, so that is the end of round 5. I have completed a round of half double crochet in the 3rd loop. And for round 6, and this will be the last round of our pattern repeat, I am going to work another round that is just single crochet, but again, I'm going to work that into the 3rd loop. So just like before, I'm going to locate my 3rd loop, and this time I'm just going to single crochet. So we're going to give ourselves 2 of these ridges that happen after you work into the 3rd loop. And I'm just going to continue around with single crochet, all the way around and slip stitch to join at the end. So I will meet you back here after that. Okay, so that is the end of round 6, our single crochet in the 3rd loop, and that also is the end of our pattern repeat for this hat. So we are going to continue to repeat rounds 2 through 6, which was our star stitches through that single crochet in the 3rd loop. And we're going to do that for a total of 4 pattern repeats. So we'll do it 3 more times. And then I will meet you back here after that. Do not tie off. We have one last round to work after all of our pattern repeats. So I will see you back here in just a few. Okay, so we are back and we have completed all 4 of our pattern repeats here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And our final round of our hat body is going to be a round of single crochet decreases. And we're going to do this just to kind of help minimize the bulk at the top when we cinch it closed together. So to get started, we are going to chain 1 and we're going to pull up a loop from the first 2 stitches. So insert your hook into the first stitch and pull up a loop, leave it there, and then insert into the next stitch and pull up another loop. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook for a single crochet decrease. We're going to just keep doing that for every 2 stitches all the way around. So pull up a loop from each of the next 2, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And just keep doing that all the way around, and I will meet you back at the join where you will join with a slip stitch to the first decrease of your round. Okay, I'm coming up on my last decrease here of the round, and I'm going to slip stitch to the first stitch of this round to join it and close. And now what I'm going to do is you'll notice that it's pulled in a little bit because we have reduced our stitches, so you can see it's kind of curving towards the top here, which is exactly what we want. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut a nice long tail here. And I usually do I err on the side of too long usually. I usually go for about 12 inches or so. And then we are going to use that long yarn tail to thread onto a tapestry needle and cinch the top closed. So to do that, we are just going to go in and out of every other of these decrease stitches here. So I do this with the right side facing me. Obviously the hat's right side out, it's not inside out, okay? So I'm just going to go in through this first stitch. I'm going to skip the next one and come out through the one after that. And just kind of keep with that same kind of in, skip, out, skip, in, skip, out, skip, as I work my way, weaving all the way around the top of my hat. And I will try and cinch it a bit as I work, because I have found that if I wait to cinch until the very end, it's usually doesn't want to cinch in a very symmetrical fashion, which just gets on my nerves. So it's just a personal preference. So just keep weaving here, in and out. Okay. So now you just cinch it here, and what I'm going to do at the top is we've just essentially got one round of yarn going through it. So I'm just going to kind of circle back through it again just to make sure, and you don't have to be really particular about it, just kind of get the needle in there where you can and secure it as best as you can. And sometimes I find it easier to try to hold the yarn instead of holding the hat. Doesn't have to be pretty here because nobody's going to be looking that closely. It just has to be secure. So try and get under those loops. And once I've gone around at least twice, usually I like to go around 3 times, or what looks like 3 times. I might have gone around more by the time it's all said and done. But I do it a good several times. And then I'm going to take my yarn needle and I'm going to feed it down through the center of my cinch and into the inside of the hat. Okay, so I split my yarn there a little bit, but you can see just coming up through the center of the hat on the inside and pull it nice and tight. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to run my thread around the inside a couple of times as well. I can tell that I've got that secure because I'm having a hard time getting my yarn needle in there. So now I am going to go ahead and just weave in my tail here. As best as I can. And I'm usually make a knot by putting a loop, like threading it in and then leaving the loop a little bit high and then pulling it tight by making a little knot there. So let me show you again. So you just feed your yarn through like you would normally. Pull it almost all the way through, leaving a small little loop, and then feed your needle through it and then pull that tight, and that makes a little knot there. So then once that's all nice and weaved in, you can go ahead and cut. Flip your hat right side out. If you have that last yarn tail here, I won't bore you with showing that to you, but I am going to weave that back in. But other than that, that's it for your hat. Your hat is done and ready to wear, and it's super cute. Okay, so that is our Faith Over Fear beanie pattern. I hope that you enjoyed this pattern and that you found the video helpful in navigating some of those trickier stitches. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave those below. I will do my best to answer them in a timely fashion. And I'll put my email address in the description box too, so that it might be a little quicker response time that way. But yeah. I am so excited to see your beanie if you made one. Please make sure to tag me if you share it on social media. You can use the hashtag Faith Over Fear Beanie on Instagram and Facebook. So that is it for this video, and I hope to see you soon again on the next one. Bye.